It is the way of the world. If I can trick you into clicking on my link, I'll get paid money. Clickbait pictures and titles with words like amazing and incredible and you won't believe it and this is why. Things get your attention. Pictures with guys making crazy faces and face palming and smacking their foreheads. Make you click on things. Ooh, that thing looks broken. Oh, cool. Just opened this car up and the little rubber nubby fell off. Huh. Yeah. Oh, whatever. Tis bug eye. Hello, hello. Today I am tuning a bug eye. Many of you know I'm not partial to them. And typically if they have stock turbos and stuff in the original 205, I say no thank you. I don't want to do it. They're going to have way too many problems. They got too many miles, too many sensors are going bad, too much stuff is going on. The ECU is degrading internally and the O2 sensors working fucky and everything else. I just don't like dealing with them. Unless, of course, they have standalones, bigger turbos and cool stuff, or in the case of this one, a JDM engine. The engine stock overall, nothing's really been done to it. But the Japanese version of this engine that they put in it has a higher compression ratio, and as such, the timing should be reduced a little bit to prevent this thing from going kablooey. And so I am doing it. Oh yes, there's that fucking bug eye smell. Oh, that's the other part I hate about them. They always smell weird. Okay, how's everybody doing? So today I am doing this bug eye tune, and while I'm doing that, I want to talk about AOSs because, as some of you know, I am building an AOS. The design is done. The prototype is going to be built here in a little while. I believe after the dry sump. The dry sump designing is also done. The drawings are the machinists. We've been going back and forth. We had a planning meeting yesterday where we went through the designs and covered a bunch of things so they understand what my goal is with it, or why I did things a certain way. Start hooking stuff on the down here. Why I did things a certain way in the design and all of that. I've had to make a few changes because sometimes as a designer, you do something that machines can't do. And I thought I did a good job with that this time, but I missed one little spot. One little tiny spot. And the machine said, no. No. So I had to change it. It was easy. Wasn't that big of a deal. The back door's still shut. And yeah, so I'm super excited to get that going. We're going to be testing that on Libby's car, and I think I've said in previous streams, I don't know if you've caught it or not, that we're going to use the factory oil pump actually as a scavenge stage and not as an oil pump. Well, it's going to pump oil, but back to the tank instead of... Boy, this is buried in here. Fuck you, bug eye. Okay, there it is. Yeah, so we're going to use the factory oil pump as a scavenge stage to draw oil out of the turbo reservoir and the pan and send it back to the oil reservoir. Hello. How you doing? What? I am live on YouTube. You can say all the cuss words you want. I don't give a shit. It's been more than 30 seconds. There you go. You're getting there. You're getting there. That was only one F-bomb. Not quite enough, though. Shit, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, the oil pump stage. So we're going to use I can hook at this jumper. And this guy's wiring is pulled into the dash really far for some reason. It's way up there. So we're going to use the factory oil pump as a scavenge stage. And I was on the shitter where I do my best thinking and designing and came up with that idea. because we were talking about, well, some kits have oil pump deletes, and they delete the pump completely. And I just was like, that just seems like a waste. I mean, I have this whole system right there in place. And if I pump air with it, with a little smidge of oil, I'll have a lot less load directly on the crankshaft for that pump. Obviously, I have it for the other 4 stages up above, or 3 stages up above. But I figured that if I had it, I might as well use it, right? Okay, there we go. So I got the jumper in. Boy, these green connectors are buried in here. You ever do this? I feel like a gynecologist on his first week right now, trying to figure out what's where. There's wife. That's not it. There we go. There it is. Found it. Found it. Yep, she's happy. Okay, there we are. All right. Now, go check the chat. Some messages came in. I want to hit those real quick. Howdy, howdy. There we are. How about the EG33 build? That's happening. Must be a special one. Your favorite card. Timer EG36. Oh shit, now you're doing AOS. I'll be in need soon. Carry for AOS. Been wanting a change from IAG. Yeah, so I like IAG, and they got lots of good stuff. But there is a couple small flaws in their AOS design. At least I believe they are. They would obviously argue. And I don't know if they call them flaws or limitations or what, but there are things that they did that I think that could be done better. And that's with every part, right? I mean, if you're going to make the most expensive AOS out there, then it needs to be fucking good, pretty much. And I hope it's not the most expensive AOS. That's never my plan. But when you get into a triple cyclone separator, it becomes expensive. And that's one reason I want to talk about the limitations and design considerations with an AOS. So an AOS, what is it? Well, its job is to remove oil particulate from an airstream. Typically, you see cyclonic separators to do that job, whether it's hard particles or a mist or a vapor or whatever. Cyclonic centrifugal separators are the most common types because they're quite effective. You can get a cyclonic separator to be 80 to 90% effective at removing any of the entrained particles in an airstream. The problem with an AOS in a car that uses cyclonic action is that they're designed typically for a certain airflow. And the PCV system on the car has a very wide range of airflows. You're not going to have just a continuous 10 cubic feet per minute of air through this thing, right? That'd be huge on the 10. That's a lot of air. But you're not going to have a continuous airflow through this that's one value. It depends on blow by, it depends on suction force from the turbocharger, or whatever your force is going to be. Right, it's gonna vary greatly based on the load. And so now you have this cyclonic separator that's really good at one flow rate and one temperature and one particle size, and you're trying to apply it now to a wide range of flow rates, temperatures, and particle sizes. And in reality, you can't do that and retain the same 80 to 90% effectiveness through that whole range with just a single stage, or with like the IAG one, you'll see they don't have a cyclone, they don't have a tapered cone. There's just a fixed cylinder with a piece in the middle that helps to keep everything accelerated around the outside edge. And that's fine. It works okay, but their separation efficiency is probably closer to 70%, and maybe even less. Obviously, I haven't tested it, but just by looking at designs and that kind of stuff, you can look up all sorts of papers from real scientists and professors and researchers online about cyclonic separation. There's a ton of them. And I've read a bunch of them in this whole AOS process. One of them, so you can go through and you can look at a paper where they try to figure out what the ideal angle is for the cone, right? If you're using an inverted cone, like most people are using an inverted cone, what is the right angle for that? And different angles have different efficiencies. And in looking through all the stuff that I could find and read all the testing results, certain angles will give you really high peak efficiencies at one flow rate and then dive off really hard after that. And so what I did was look at the ones that had the widest acceptable range for maintaining high efficiency. And that is, I believe, if I recall, it was 24 degrees, I think was the correct cone angle. So 12 degrees off of the vertical. So that 24 degree had a slightly lower peak efficiency than some of the other ones, but it held its efficiency for a really wide range of airflows. So I had this hump over a wide range of airflows, and then the other ones might have this little peak here at low and then dive off really hard, or nothing, have this little peak at the end, and that was it. And that meant that its efficiency was shit everywhere, but at this one specific airflow. It's almost like a bandpass, type of idea there. So I went through, I believe it was 24, might have been 25, 24 and a half. I don't recall now exactly what it was, but it was right around 24 is what the peak efficiency was for the widest airflow band that you can get. That being said, as I said before, the airflow range on a PCV system is very different. We're talking 4 times, 5 times what it is at somewhere else. So how do you do that? How do you make it more effective? Well, you add more cyclones. And that's what I did. I added more cyclones. So there are 3 cyclones in the separator. 2 of them are only ever really affected by a single circuit. Basically, so based on what circuit you have plumbed into it, it's going to have 2 cyclones. What they are depends on which circuit it is, and I have that all set up in it. But that's more cyclones than anybody else has, and it's done really elegantly. I'm really happy with it, and I'm excited about it. So, is it 100%? No, of course not. No AOS is going to be 100%, but it's going to be higher than anything else on the market, and I think by a considerable margin. Again, that's just through simulations and testing and research and all that, but I really think that we have a badass AOS coming for sure. I forgot to put this kid's name in here. So I'm super excited about that. And the dry sump, I'm really excited about that as well. I'm doing something that nobody's ever done in dry sump pumps before. And obviously, I think it's the right reasons. Jacob, that's the guy's name. Obviously, I think it's the right way to do it because I'm doing it. And I could be wrong. It's possible. I doubt it. But I could be wrong. All right, Jacob. Let's see. All right. Last name. Sorry. Let's get in here. Jacob Nickelberg. Alt. New vehicle. I'm just putting in a Dyno information for it. Okay, 64. Make Subaru. Model. Wrecked. 2002. All-wheel drive. Viscous center diff. Save. There we go. All right. Sweet. And I'm using the backup phone today, so the battery doesn't last nearly as long on this one as it is on the other one. So this won't be a 3-hour stream. But there's 16 people in here. I have no idea if 16 of you, 17 now, have been in my Discord. But in my Discord, I have pictures of the AOS as well as testing data. I should say simulation data because simulation is actually testing, right? So simulation data and pictures of the insides and things I'm doing. One thing I'm doing that no one's ever done before is changing the way it drains. I don't feel that anybody does the drain correctly. That being said, my friend Micah from 3MI, he made a drain kit for cars where you can drain to the turbo drain. That's an excellent idea, and I had planned on doing that anyways, and I'm not going to lie, I think maybe he got the idea from me because we talked about it. But so he released a kit where you can go to the turbo drain. Mine's going to be the same option to go to the turbo drain, but also to the valve cover. I have an adapter I'm making that allows it to drain into the valve cover. Obviously, the valve cover is higher than the turbo drain, but based on location of the AOS and the way that I have the drain function operating, that should not be any issue at all. It has a check valve integrated into the bottom of it. I made the check valve, designed the check valve. I had to go through and design what I thought would work and then choose the material based on the density, and then do calculations for how much pressure it would take to seat that check valve. The check valve is normally open so that when you say the car is off and if there's any oil in there, it could drain down. Or if the crankcase is highly pressurized more than the AOS, which would be when you punch it, in theory, if you punch it, then the AOS is going to be lower pressure than the crankcase, so it's not going to drain during that time. And then when you let off the shift, valve will open, it'll suck some oil down. Or when you get done with your pull, it'll suck some oil down. So there's some oil volume that is able to stay in the AOS. Whether there's enough or not, I don't know. That's where testing comes in. But the check valve, the drain system, isn't open to atmosphere isn't open to the crankcase all the time. And so when the crankcase pressurizes, it's not going to be blowing air through the pool of oil in the bottom and causing more oil to get entrained and sucked at the top. And that's one of the flaws with a bunch of the systems on the market, is that the top and the bottom, there's nothing in between them, sometimes a little bit in between them, but the air is allowed to come in from the crankcase into the store of oil and then bubble it all up and then froth up this oil again and train a bunch of it into air and out the top of the AOS, because that spot doesn't have any cyclonic action between the top and the bottom. So a lot of the flaws with the AOS on the market is the fact that the drain is always open and cause a lot of oil to get ingested into the engine and stuff. So that will not be an issue. That has been taken care of 100%. I gotta open the back door so I can put the Dyno fans on. So I'm excited about that. I wanted it to be made of steel because I didn't want it to wear or gall or stick with the aluminum. Do you have the keys to the back door, or is it hanging up? Back door? What? Okay. So I wanted a good material. I needed to be dense enough, but not too dense. What music? I don't hear any music.
I don't either.
Yeah. So the AOS is going to address a lot of problems that current AOSs on the market have. And then my next goal is, I think I'm going to make an insert for the other popular AOS that you can just add on to one. So if you already have the other companies, you don't need to throw it away. You don't need to sell it. You can keep it. And in fact, if you like the way theirs is mounted, better than mine, if you like the looks of it, because mine's gonna be very limited in appearance, you can still buy the other one and then put the insert in it and make it more effective. Who that is? What's up? I heard my name.
Oh, we're just bitching about how we can't get camera.
Oh yeah. Well, FedEx. That's FedEx. They fuck me. They've been fucking me a lot. FedEx has cost me almost $100 grand right now so far. New Zealand, yeah. I should sue them, really.
They suck so bad, there's no way a court will break in their favor.
Well, you know,
they lost shit too.
Right? Yeah, the judge is like, yeah, fuck FedEx. I wouldn't be able to find a jury or a judge that's impartial. Fuck FedEx. God, I hate those assholes. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but I have my last set of cams that I ordered. I revised the cams a tiny bit, made a bigger exhaust cam to help the guys that want to make, 1,000 horsepower. Want to get the exhaust cam a little larger to get the air out. And so my new revision of the cams, intake cam is the same. Oh no, actually that's not true. Intake cam is different by 4 degrees. The 4 degrees they were supposed to do on the original one, they didn't do it, turns out. But anyways, so they sent me an email telling me that my cams had hit the US and it was time for me to give them all my information so that they could send it to me, the customs crap. And I was like, okay, here it is. Within 9 minutes of their email, I responded. And then the guy that I responded to emailed me back with some more questions. Within 2 minutes of that email, I responded. I heard nothing back. Well, I'm not an impatient guy. Unless you're sitting at a fucking green light on your phone, not paying attention. Then I'm impatient. But, so I waited. 2 weeks. Nothing showed up. I mean, they were in the U.S., so they told me. But, you know, customs clearance and that kind of shit takes a little time. So I wasn't going to be too picky or call them nonstop. And nothing showed up. So I called them. Oh, we sent them back to New Zealand. We sent them back to sender. Wait, what? Why'd you do that? Oh, well, you didn't respond to our emails. You didn't give us the required information. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I responded within 9 minutes and 2 minutes. No, you didn't. Yeah, here's the emails. And then they're just like, well, I don't know what happened. And I'm like, I don't know what happened either. So after a month of fighting with him, trying to figure out what the fuck was going on, finally figured out what it was. The dude was such an incompetent moron that he didn't bother following up for 2.5 weeks, and they already started sending them back. And then when I got a hold of him again, and he decided to follow up, he sent all my updated information to the wrong fucking port. He sent all my information to Anchorage, Alaska, when my cams were sitting in LAX. So, yeah, I got screwed on that. Super great. For some reason, my laptop is recording me right now. And I don't know why. I got this light in the corner that says recording. So, which one of these motherfuckers is tapped into my shit? I'm gonna know. And I can't turn it off. It just says recording and it won't stop. Wait. Did it stop now? There it goes. Woo! All right. That's really weird. Don't know why it happened. Matt, when you said AVCS, what were you asking about AVCS there, Matt? Did you wonder if I meant AVCS instead of AOS? Or was there something else that I missed? Oh, or the JDM engine in this? No AVCS. Unfortunately, this one's just a regular 205. No AVCS. Wish it did. That makes it way more fun. The JDM 205 in my little GC sedan that I got from Dewey. That one I put a JDM 205 with AVCS in it. It's got a VF 48 and a top mount from a GR and dark blues, and that thing rips. That thing scoots really good. It isn't that laggy, considering it's a 2-liter with a VF, because the AVCS on the 2 liters makes such a huge difference. That thing really scoots. And the car weighs nothing. I mean, it's manual windows, and it's a 97 or 98. 97, because it's got the old school dash on it. So it, yeah, the thing rips. It's so light. It's fun, but the clutch is fucked up on it, unfortunately. So I got to fix that. I put a new clutch in it. I don't know if it's actually the clutch. I think it's the slave and the master that are dorked up. Let me see. Let's see if I can pull up pictures for you. I'll show you guys pictures of this. It's really cool. I've tried to keep a lot of pictures off of the internet for my stuff because so many of my designs and things have been stolen and taken from me. Oh, like I'm doing a battery tie down. And you're like, wait, a battery tie down? Like that doesn't seem something that I would do. And it is because
factory battery tie down with the J bolts and shit sucks. Like, it's so annoying, right? You're trying to get the J bolt in, you're trying to hold it upwards, get into the thing. Sometimes you can thread it onto the bracket and then put down between the bracket and try and hook in the body, but to get the hook in, you got to tip the J bolt way over the side. Then the bracket on top is pulling around, and so you gotta like get one in and get the thing in, then try and get the other one fed up without dropping it out the other side. It's just a pain in the ass. The way the factory battery tie down setup is a pain in the ass. And so my tie down is not a pain in the ass. My tie down is easy. And of all the silly things in the world, it's just a tie down. But it's just one of those little things that you deal with whenever you're pulling a battery out, which happens a lot in the Subaru. And so what I did, I'll show you a picture of it. What I did is, I think, really, really smart. So you can see that. Wait for it to come in, focus. What you see is a slot. See the slot in it? And then the nut is captured in the channel there. So what I've done is counterboard into the top of the the tie down, then let the slot narrow for the J bolt. So the J bolt, you just set the battery tie down on top of the battery, hook your J bolt, and go. You just stop it. Here it is. Whoop, into the slot, thread your nut down, retained. Put the other one, hook it in, bring it in, whoop, into the slot, thread your nut down. It's fucking retained. Easy as pie. Like, of all the simple things in the world, the Subaru tie down sucks balls, and so I designed one that was just a quality of life thing. I got so tired of fighting with them, and they rush so easy too. The factory ones get all rusty and nasty, and I mean they're right next to sulfuric acid, which tends to often have, like, sulfate or lead sulfate on the battery posts or whatever, all kinds of crap, and things get really corroded and nasty. So I made a nice, elegant tie down that's easy to install. It's not going to rust on you. Anyways, so that's coming out soon too. Been having a hard time finding nuts for it though. That's been the hard part, is the nuts. But I think I found some that are going to work. If they don't work, I'll make my own. But I found some shelf nuts. But that's like something that you take for granted. Another thing too is that with the nuts that I'm going to use, it hides the threads, so you don't have the thread sticking out. I don't know what it is, but an exposed thread just sticking up like that with a nut on it is so ugly, right? It's not a good looking thing. So I use slightly higher in the for the final resting place of the nut, so that the nut is enclosed and it's basically like an acorn nut, but really long and tall. And then it covers the whole thing up. No exposed threads, nothing to snag your shirt on, nothing to poke you or cut you with, nothing to look hideous. Just looks beautiful and nice, tie down, good to go. Now this is the dry sump pump. I don't know if that's coming out or not. Oh, now you know what time it is. Okay, let's try this again. Boop. Okay. It's not really focusing very well. That's the dry sump. It goes where the AC goes. It's 3-stage. The main one, the pressure stage, is on the front. It has a lot of improvements over the factory oil pump, even though I'm using factory oil pump gears. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is that all the dry sumps on the market, they default back to old gear technology. They go to the regular old spur gear, and I don't think that's the play. Every oil pump manufacturer, pretty much for a factory car, has abandoned the spur gear for lots of reasons. They're less efficient, being one of them. So I'm trying to find my starting map here. They're not as strong. There's a bunch of other things associated with spur gears. And I got a phone call I have to decline. Sorry, Neil. So, I'm sorry. I'm looking for my map here. I can find it real quick. anyway, so I went to a geocycloid, which is an extremely efficient design, provides a relatively stable oil pressure, and the cool thing is it's the factory gear. And we know that the factory gears last a long time and don't have issues with oil flow. A lot of people think, oh, this pump has an oil flow issue. It doesn't have an oil flow issue. It has an oil pressure issue. And the pressure isn't because of the gears. The pressure is because of the design of the housing, because the pump is so compact. And then slight issues with the suction and discharge, which is one of the things that IAG addresses in their oil pump, at least judging by their literature they have for the new Stage 2 CNC quarter pumps and everything. Seems to me that they addressed the issue that I've been telling people about for a long time. If you like some other videos where I describe the negatives of using too large of a pump, if you look at those videos, then you'll start to see why. There you go. I think this is it right here. Nope, that's the wrong one. Damn it. I've recently reformatted my computer, so half of my programs weren't in, and I thought I got them all, but I had so freaking many. And then, one sec, I'm looking at the hood, verifying the injectors. I think it's got light blues in it. I want to make sure. Yep, light blues and a Cobb SF. All right. All right, there it is. Got it. Okay. Now I need this guy's AP serial number. So the first thing I got to do is I got to make my base map for this AP. I got to register it to his serial number. So that's what I'm doing right now. It needs an update, of course. It's on, holy shit, how old is this firmware? '19. It's not pretty old firmware. So I'll do a firmware update and then while I build this map. La, la, la. Cobb intake. Save that. So, I think we're sick again. My wife texted me, said that a bunch of patients called the office and said that they were COVID positive, like 3 patients in one day. And they had, 2 of them had just been in there a couple of days prior. And then the wife woke up with a sore throat, and I've felt a little congested lately. But I've already had COVID twice, and I did the antibody test. I don't know if you guys have done it before. Did the antibody test, and I had a lot of antibodies. More than I should have had if the last time I was tested positive was the last time I had it. So it's very likely that I've had it again since then, but since I have so many antibodies, it didn't affect me very much. That's the current belief. So hopefully she's not getting sick right this second again. Her antibody count was a lot lower than mine, but she still had some, which is good because she did have it back in October of 20. She tested positive October 20, and I'm betting she probably had it more recently than that as well. But this new variant, I guess, is really contagious, but not very potent. Gets you a little sick. It's not deadly and that kind of thing. So, I mean, it makes sense. The natural progression of viruses, typically, that's how it works. The virus is too strong and it kills the host, then it can't replicate. If it can't replicate, it dies off. The ones that are more contagious and less deadly, those are the ones that get passed around more. So it's kind of expected, I guess. So if I get it again. Whatever. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. Let's see. Or maybe like Flu-Rona. Yeah, that'd be. I think that's actually the worst one. It's probably Flu-Rona. Feeling all poopy all the time. All right, so I got some timing pulled on my base map here. I got the wastegate duty cycle turned down for the initial checks for the for fueling, and then luckily it was already base map, so lots of things already done to it. Most of the stuff in here is all EJ205. So the biggest thing I gotta just compensate for is a slight improvement in how the boost responds because I have more expansion with a higher compression ratio. Then of course the rising compression ratio affecting my spark, my necessary timing. So higher compression typically means I need less advance. So I pulled some advance out of it, and we should be in good shape to flash this base map and then give it a go and see what's up. So, okay. Is the Axport update complete yet? It was successful. Good. Good for me. What's going on here? Oh, there we go. Bloop. Find out what maps he got on right now. Right now he has stage 291 standard map on here. Okay. All right, we're gonna eject that and do the flitchy flashy. Ah, green connectors of death. Even more deathy on this car because they're so buried in here. I used to have a rig that I could plug in and just flick a switch. And then that failed. Why are you taking so long? All right, so we're flashing. So back to what I was talking about the dry sump. I'm using the geocycloid gear. You can look up if you want. There's a bunch of research papers on geocycloids and their effectiveness at pumping oil. One of the biggest things about them is that they pump more oil with less horsepower than other profiles, and also less heating. And that's really exciting. Whereas like a spur gear heats the shit out of the oil. Why is that? Why does a spur gear heat the oil a bunch? Why is this spur gear bad as an oil pump? Well, it's bad as an oil pump because as the gears come together to mesh, right, there's this meshing action, right? There's a little bit of slip on them as they come together. They come out, they slip against each other a little bit, and then they slip apart again. And that action, if you think about that, metal on metal, well, there's oil in there, but if I'm going to have oil in between them and I'm doing this with it, it's going to warm up. And so, position, yeah, it's already on. So the spur gear is less efficient. It has more heating of the oil. It has more friction in the gear and all of that. The thing about a geocycloid and cycloidal gears overall, I'm getting spammed every time I register a new fucking website. Oh shit, boss. Oh, none of these messages came in earlier. That's really weird. All of a sudden, my chat went and updated with a bunch of messages. So I'll get to those in a sec. So the design considerations with the cycloids is having no sliding contact. That's the idea. The idea is that it comes in, when it comes into contact, it's just part on part, boop, pushes it up, and it comes off. So to minimize the amount of sliding contact as much as possible. It's a really cool design. If you were to look at the pressure angle on something like that, it's almost like an infinite pressure angle. Like it just doesn't have that sliding interface between the two of them. It's really neat. It's a really neat design. Sorry, she's warming up now. So going with the geocycloid is more efficient, uses less power, has less oil heating, shears the oil less, and has all kinds of benefits over a spur gear. And so why have manufacturers stayed with it for so long is always my question. And I believe it's just because of simplicity. It is by far an easier oil pump to design. I did my spur gear dry sump pump design in about 2 weeks, but only a day of it was the actual pumping section. The pumping mechanism, the gear design, making the chamber that it pumped in, day. That was it. It was easy. And they're easy to cut. I mean, all you need is the figure 8 based shape, essentially, on a mill. You take your block of aluminum, you go, and then you shove 2 gears in it, and blah, I have oil pump. Super easy. Mine, on the other hand, for the using the geocycloid gears, that's taken a while. It's taken a long time. Trying to get, first off, trying to learn how that pump likes to have oil supplied to it. And when you research that, and what's going on here? Oh, the fucking managers on AutoConnect. I hate that. When you look at what cycloid gears, I'm going to export, turn that off. How they work, or how they like to be fed. You can see the limitation in the Subaru one, because the Subaru one provides oil. It goes through a tortuous path to get to the gear, and then the gear is rotating. The oil comes in and goes, oh, let's creep around the side a little bit and get in here, and has a little tiny spot. So it's got 137 thousandths on one side of the gear to squeeze oil by, and then it's got about a quarter inch or a little more than a quarter inch of oil on the other side to get oil into the gear. And that tortuous path and then that hard 90 to feed into it is very it's inefficient. It routes power. It creates large pressure gradients, and when you have pressure gradients, that means that there's highs and there's lows, and the lows are what cause cavitation. And it froths the oil more and shears it more and all kinds of stuff. So what I've done is I've created a pump that has a lot more room on the side so that the oil can enter the gear better at a bit of an angle. It is next to it. It does come in this way and split, but the channel is larger so that it can enter at a side feed angle. I pretty much went through as many research papers I could find on cycloidal pumps and how they like to have their feeds and discharges, and fit that as well as I could in the form factor that I have available to me. And unfortunately, because I did it so aggressively, it made it so I can only fit about 3 stages with a stock intake manifold and 4 stages with some aftermarket manifolds. Like the Process West, I believe, has a little more room because it's a little taller and a little straighter for a while. So I could probably fit about 4 stages behind the Process West, but only 3 stages on the factory. The oil pump from the factory is like this wide, the whole section, the whole thing, right? It's really narrow, and the oil has to come up and feed around these really tight spots. Mine is like an inch and change wide, and so there's a lot of room for the oil to get to the side of those 11mm gears. It's it's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it. And the discharge is better too. So I had to figure out how to get all that to fit, how to feed it with a tapered floor so that I maintain velocity. As I remove volume, I want to maintain velocity, right? I don't have these huge velocity profiles or gradients in the oil going into the gears. Because if I just had like this chamber and then the gears going through, the way those things suck is the teeth unmesh, create a volume, and then remesh and squish it back out. So when they first start to open up, there's not a whole lot of flow going in there, right? So there's very little bit of flow going into the initial spot. And then as they reach the spot where they go, whoop, open a bunch, I got more oil flow. So I don't need a huge feed section under the small opening spot. And if I left it the same cross section all the way through, then I would have the oil slowing down a bunch as it went into a gear and then accelerating again when it hit a gear. So I had to put a taper on it, had to get the right volume in there so that it maintains its speed as it loses mass to the gears. I know that sounds pretty complex and probably convoluted to describe without having pictures to show you, but it was fun and time consuming. A lot of time went into that. So that one took a lot longer to get, and even then, last night I was making revisions to it because there were some issues with the machine being able to cut the channels that I made for the back of the gear. And luckily, it didn't require a large design change. I only had to change the way I did one section of it. I had to go additive instead of subtractive from amount of material there, and that made it easy. I could. Never mind. I don't know if you guys know SolidWorks. That'd be pointless for me to tell you right there, but it's gonna be really cool. I'm really excited about it. So AOS, battery tie down, dry sump, and eventually I'll get my second set of cams and I'll get my hoses in for my cooling mods. One batch of cooling mods went out to many people with the this thing smells a lot. Do I have the fans on? No, that's why. Just carbon monoxide, whatever. Whatever. I need that meme with the little guy sitting in the fire. This is fine. That's me. Have carbon monoxide molecules all around me and show my blood O2 levels dropping and my CO2 levels going up inside my bloodstream and everything, and we have the chart out with like the limits. It says like certain death, like a line. I'm approaching the line, and so I'm like, this is fine. That's me in a dyno cell right there. Especially at Turning Concepts where we had no ventilation at all when I was there. Ooh, that was bad. I got fucked up from that. They kept resisting spending the money to actually get ventilation in the dyno cell there, and I started having a problem with my lungs. And I go to the doctor, they started doing scans of my lungs, and I was growing cysts in my lungs from ingesting all this shit over there. And they didn't want to fix it. They weren't trying very hard. Then everybody one day got really sick. All the mechanics got sick. Everybody got sick from carbon monoxide. And then they're like, okay, we'll add some more fans. But it still wasn't adequate. Since then, since I left like 6-7 years ago now, they fixed it. But it was a point of contention, that was for sure. All right, so here I am at idle. The car's been warming up. It's fully up to temperature-ish. Air fuel correction is a whole 3%, so that's good. That means we got the mass airflow calibration and injector calibration is correct. It's going to fall down. Grab that. So we're at a whole 3% there. I'm bringing up the speed. I'm at 2,500, and oh, that clutch is not ideal. And this car is bouncing because it's something out for a long time. It's got flat spots. Can I make this stable? More stable? Stabler! Make it stabler. What the hell? I think so. Not that you want to see my face the whole time. I'm going to show the screen in a second here, but let's see if I can do that. I need to get my freaking... So now the correction 0 point something up to 1.5, 0.7, 1.56. So minus a percentage. No learning yet, because why would you bother with that? It might pop a negative here in the next probably 30 seconds. Might show like a negative 0.7 or something right here. We'll see how that behaves. Mass airflow looks good. Everything looks good right here so far. All right, so I got a tip and knock right there. Now the question is that legitimate, or is that a noise aspect? Is something rattling in the engine, banging against something, or is that... all right, I'm gonna speed this up, trying to smooth out these bumps here. Oh, I gotta tell the dyno I want to do that first. 1 second. I tell the dyno I want to do 60 miles an hour so I can get these tires unflat spotted. Interestingly enough, power distribution right now is front biased, significantly front biased, 230 to 130 foot-pounds between the front and rear axles. That's interesting. All right, 60 miles an hour. Let's accelerate this thing. Let's get these tires smoothed out so it's not vibrating so much. Let's make them round again. Make tires round again. That's a lot better, right? We're not bouncing around anymore. Turn this camera around. All right, so we're at 60 miles an hour. The dyno stops it at 60. It holds it here so I can check the RPM. I got 3226 on the computer side of it. I'll put that into the dyno so then it knows what gear ratios I have. So I hit my T button. T. Was that T? Yeah, it was T. And then I got to go into the screen and I got to find the window that you can't see from this distance. I can't see it either. I just thankfully know which one it is because I've done it 100,000 times. Okay, probably only 15,000 times. There we go. So now the speed is set. Now we go to the graph stage. It's going to have the old dyno graph from last tune I did on here. This is definitely not a 540 wheel horsepower BMW. Not the case. So delete that. Oh, speaking of which, last car I tuned was Matt's car. Matt is, he was in the chat earlier, Matt Martin. His B58, and I love the B58 engine. It is awesome. Even the Gen 1, it's not the one that's in the Supra. It's super similar to the one that's in the Supra. The B58 TU1 or TU2 is in the Supra. Still a B58. It's got slightly different stuff done to the head and some stuff not better, I gotta say. And then it has stronger pistons and rods and slight different ports. But it has the integral exhaust manifolds thing, turbofold. Not good, don't like that. But it's a sweet motor. I had tuned it before with its MG flasher program. The definitions were really limited. The flasher wasn't working quite, well, not that flasher, and then he had a JB4 on top of it. JB4 was making the car drive like absolute shit, unfortunately. So we took the JB4 off, the car ran smoother, but the amount of options that the MG flasher was giving us was very limited. So we went to the boot mode. Some people see it as being 3. The E in mode is a 3, late speak, whatever. So it's actually boot mode, not boot mod 3, it's boot mode. Anyway, so we did the boot mode, and it was like 5:30. We finally got our computer problems figured out. I had all kinds of issues with my computer and his car, and it just was a fucking nightmare with a bunch of stuff. We finally got them all figured out. Got the base map on there from boot mode, and the car made more power than it did before, drove way better on just their freaking base flash. So then I was like, well, let's adjust some stuff, and it just wasn't really responding like it should have responded. Disabled the JB4, and then all of a sudden the car made way more power than it had before and drove so much better. The fuel pressure wasn't falling. For some reason, JB4 was causing fuel pressure to drop like a rock. So after dealing with all the issues that he had with his JB4 and then and all the time he's had it, I cannot recommend the JB4 for an 58 at all. Absolute trash, unfortunately, and this is what the fuck happens. And so we put their stage 2 multi-map on there so that he can change maps. You hold the resume button on the cruise control and then use the up and down on the cruise control speed to select a pump gas map, E30, E50, or an OEM tune. And we did that with their Stage 2 Plus off-the-shelf map. I set a bunch of parameters for the mods that did the car and made 540 something or more wheel horsepower. And on this down, that's a lot. And it rips. It drives so good. We did the XHP flasher for the transmission and all of that. And it rips. It drives great. And unfortunately, I didn't get to do a custom tune on it because I didn't have time. But fortunately, and they also don't have multi-map for custom tuning yet. So I emailed them and said, hey, I want to be able to provide multi-maps. Can we get this done? And I haven't got a response yet. I'm sure they get a million emails. Or they want to say, fuck you, Dom, and I'll blame them. But luckily, the car runs really good. There's only like 1, maybe 2 throttle closures because it's got a pure 800 turbo on it, on a map designed for the stock turbo. But it hit all the targets really well. Fueling was on point. No fuel pressure drops. Ignition was perfect. Like, everything was really, really good. And the car drives really nice. So in that regard, I didn't have to custom tune it. Although I would like to get rid of those throttle closures, but they weren't even full throttle closures. They were like from 100 to 72% or something like that, and that was it. So it turned out really good. The thing rips. So if you're looking to get into a platform, BMW B58, it's a sweet motor. You can't go wrong with it in almost any year. I have one in mine. I love mine. In fact, I hadn't done any tuning on mine in 2 years, and I still had old definitions and everything else on there. And I opened up the program, and it had a couple hundred new tables available. And I was like, holy shit, they actually improved this stuff, because I was really pissed off when I did it originally. I was like, I'm never going to do boot mode ever again. This system sucks. I hate it. And then I went in 2 years later and opened it up, and I was blown away at how many features they had, how much further they defined the ECU and everything, and it was awesome. So I updated my map, and it rips. It does really good. All right, so let me go back to these messages. There's a lot came in, like I said, just updated all of a sudden. Okay, give her the IEG, cyclone separator. Wait, what's on here? Holy crap, a lot more than I thought. Okay, just a tip. Is cyclone separator similar to what they use on intake system for side-by-sides? I don't know. I don't know what that is. I don't think I've seen an intake system on side-by-side, but if it's got a big V on it, then probably. Need to get AOS in my car. Will come after the new engine harness. Maybe a good coolant expansion tank too. I'll keep this afloat. Killer Bee is a single cyclone. If you're still here, and I've lost 21 people since then. Killer Bee is a single cyclone. Yes, it's a large enough cyclone separator that it should be applicable for as much blow-by as almost any engine will put out. But, I mean, only testing will reveal if that's true or not. I don't like people delete the upper coolant expansion tanks. It makes no sense to me. That expansion tank isn't just for the turbo. It has other functions that are really important. Giving a place for steam and vapors to accumulate so it doesn't accumulate in the engine setup somewhere. Because the last thing you want is the engine to have all these hot spots because there's a big vapor pocket there. There are lots of different types of heat transfer, but when it comes to close this. There we go. That's better. When you're doing convective heat transfer, it isn't as simple as just I'm running water by something. There are stages during heat transfer where okay, so let's back this up. Laminar flow. If I have laminar flow in a cylinder or through a tube, and I'm doing heat transfer in this tube, laminar flow means that the flow through it is consistent. That there's a thin film, a boundary layer against the wall where the water is flowing very slowly, and in fact, all the way at the wall, the finest point, it's not flowing at all. It's a stationary water molecule that's adhered to the side of the pipe. And the higher the flow rate, the thinner that boundary layer gets, and the faster the water goes through the pipe. Okay, well, that's one aspect of it. But there's also the aspect of how much heat I'm putting into the water, and I'm talking Q, I'm not talking T, versus how much it's able to carry away. And there's a point at which you start to put more heat into the water than it can carry away at that boundary layer. The boundary layer gets thinner and thinner and thinner, and you add heat, and you get a little steam pocket that forms. And that's nucleate boiling. Nucleate boiling is the best heat transfer you can have during a convective flow possible. In nucleate boiling, you get water absorbs enough heat that it vaporizes. So you have what's called latent heat of vaporization, and it forms a bubble. And that bubble then moves upwards away from the wall into the cooler liquid, and then it collapses because it transfers heat into that liquid. So what I've done now is I've created a situation where instead of just relying on the water moving by to pull heat off of the wall and then let it transfer to the bulk coolant through normal, normal agitation that you would get because you have the profile. I'm trying to explain that picture again, it's really hard. So if you were to do like a velocity profile graph of a pipe, and what you would see is the center of the pipe is moving the fastest and the edges are going the slowest. So you'd have like very little velocity, a lot of velocity, back to very little velocity again, right? And so now I have these velocity differences in the pipe as I move up. Okay, so if I have water flowing faster here than I do here, then I'm going to have a little bit of a swirling going on. I'm going to have mixing going on in those areas. So normally what we're relying on is that natural difference in velocity to create a mixing effect and pull the heat off the wall of the pipe and into the bulk of the coolant. It's not super effective, but it works. If I add nucleate boiling, if I add a small localized area where I absorb enough heat, enough Q to vaporize the water, and then I let it come in to the stream and then collapse and transfer energy into the middle, I have a much more effective heat transfer to the center of the bulk, or the bulk of the coolant, than I do relying on just the natural mixing. So nucleate boiling is really, really effective. The problem is when I get past DNB and that bubble can no longer collapse because the bulk has gotten so hot that it stays a vapor. That's where you start to experience boil over and shit like that. Now that's in a perfect system. If I get an aerated system and I have entrained gases in there, or I get those bubbles, that steam that start to accumulate in the system, I don't want them to stay in the bulk of the coolant. If they stay in the bulk of the coolant, it occupies space. I now have less coolant mass in there because some of it's a vapor. It's occupying space. Therefore, there's less mass that's in that region. If I have less mass, I am unable to transfer as much Q, which is heat quantity, out of the engine. So I need that vapor to go somewhere. Parking it in the engine is not a good place to park it. Parking it in the radiator, not a good place to park it. Put in the radiator now, then I have this section of the radiator that is not transferring energy out. So what I can very quickly have is an avalanche effect where I'm starting to get steam. The steam is now impeding heat transfer, so other spots get hotter inside the engine. Then I carry that steam into the radiator or somewhere else. Now the radiator is pulling less heat out of the coolant flow because it's occupying space. And eventually what happens is if my BTU input in is still the same, my BTU input out is going down. And so the bulk temperature is going to go up. I'm going to get more steam, get more vapor, right? It's going to just avalanche until whoop, the system is, gone kaputskis. So having that expansion tank there provides a volume for steam and even lower density coolant that has entrained a lot of air and vapors to accumulate and not affect overall heat transfer. I'm gonna do a poll. Low boost, low wastegate duty, definitely low timing, no knock. felt really smooth. I like that. Felt really smooth. Power was actually remarkably well. Holy shit, remarkably good. For a low boost in a 2 liter, 210 wheel, that ain't bad. Like I said, it's on wastegate pressure. And oh no, it wasn't wastegate pressure. It was just low boost. Let me see. I think I hit like 11 or something. 6, 8. Oh no, it creeped up to 14. Well, bummer. I was hoping for lower. Mass airflow indicates that it matches the wheel horsepower output. And I had no knock during the pull, so that's all good news during that. All right, sorry, I had to like at least do my job a little bit while I was here. But anyways, I know that's a lot of words. That's a lot of words to tell you that no, I don't get rid of that expansion tank. I think it's dumb to get rid of it. That's not what. It's more than just keeping the turbo cool after shutdown, which it does do. It does aid in keeping the turbocharger cool after engine shutdown. But there are other benefits to having that there, and getting rid of it, in my eyes, is not good. It's not good. I know that was a lot of words. Okay. How about low mount turbo setup? Low mount turbo setup. It's coming. Actually, we're making progress. Yeah, 205 ABCS rocks. Can you prevent the battery tie down from getting weird battery corrosion stuff on it? I wonder if that's a side effect of cheap batteries. Yeah, well, oh, this would be that misfire the customer said he had. I really think they got the lash wrong. The engine showed up when he first did it, and it had a lot of noise that was valve lash related. And then supposedly they tightened the lash up, and now it developed a misfire. So I just did a pull. It got hot. Now I feel the engine boop, 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 boop a little bit. It feels like they've misfired on 2 again. So they might have got the lash too tight, and now it's holding the valve open some. That'd be a very unfortunate thing to do a pull when it's holding the valve open, because that's how you burn valves. Since Subarus don't have adjustable lash or hydraulic lash adjustment, they're just mechanical lash adjustment. If they got it too tight after having it way too loose, we could have a failure there. So, okay, sorry, I feel the thing going. Okay, so so what is that corrosion stuff? That corrosion stuff is lead sulfate. It's lead sulfate. It's PB2SO4, I think is what it is. I don't think it's PBSO4. PbO2 plus O2, H2SO4, H2O. I forget. I gotta write down the battery equation and do it again. But it's called battery equation. It's just lead, then sponge lead or lead oxide, based on who you talk to and what you want to call it. So you have PB, you have lead plate, you have PbO2 plate, and then you have H2SO4, which is sulfuric acid. And then the reactions you get from that, you get lead sulfate, water, and electrons, basically. And so during a discharge, you're essentially turning a certain amount of that lead and reacting it with the sulfur and the sulfuric acid, and then you're getting electrons out of that. And then when you put electrons back in it, then you push the reaction in the direction, and you get back to lead, lead oxide or PbO2, and sulfuric acid. So if you're getting that buildup on there, typically that's lead sulfate. And that's from a battery. Typically it's when they are either overcharged and they see too much heat and they start to boil out the vapors and start to collect on things. Some of it's migration, past seals, or if the lead is too porous, because the PbO2 is a porous lead, if I recall. One of them is porous. One's called sponge lead. One of them is really, really porous. And if it's too porous, then you can get it coming out of the terminals and stuff too. But it's not good, because that's literally your battery capacity gathering somewhere else and not being in the battery anymore. So if you're getting that, I would just get a new battery. I'd clean the shit out of it and then work on getting another battery. Or try the terminal treatment that you can put the seal and stuff on there. That's something that works. That spray that can help keep it if it's really porous lead on that post and it's letting it seep up and build up. Then you can try that terminal spray, that can help out too. But usually if I'm getting sulfate, then I've either over discharged and then overcharged, or the battery's seen too much heat in use from being either too discharged and then charged too fast or something else like that. So there's a lot of things that can cause the sulfate to come out, but it is supposed to be inside the battery. So nothing I can do about that. The tie down would have nothing to do with that happening. All I know is that it's going to be anodized. It's going to be clear anodized. It's going to be gold anodized. And that will help reduce the interactions that it'll have with stuff if it comes in contact with them. But never is getting battery acid or lead sulfite on stuff good, right? So there's only so much I can do about that. What kind of power is this monster going to make? Probably like 230 wheel. I got shots of the 5G coverage as crap on the Pixel 6. I think I need new SIM since upgrading phones. When are you going to activate the donation chat thing on YouTube? You know, I keep forgetting about that. I set up the stuff. I just never hit the go button. I had to get things approved by YouTube, and I never approved it, or I never activated it. I should do that, or I should. It would definitely help. Help me get these things done. I'm getting over the new strain right now. It's just annoying sinus and slightly runny nose, and a week off work. Yeah, if it's paid week, then great. You know, it's vacation. It's not the greatest vacation because you're not feeling great, but it's time off. Some kind of noise cancellation happening. I'm surprised I can't hear anything other than voice. Oh, I mean, it's not a shitty phone, so some of them are good. Terminal treatment seemed to help my old WRX. Kept the tie down from making the junk. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, that spray stuff, it can help. It just seals up the porosity of the lead to keep the stuff from migrating out. That's what it's supposed to do. Let's see. Let's look at this log. So yeah, the boost actually climbed more than I thought it would. Tanner, did you look at the boost line? Let's find out. Oh yeah, it's on there. I see it now. Nope, that's not. That's torque. Let me adjust down real quick. 1 second. I want torque. I want manifold pressure. Yeah, it hit 15 pounds. So even with low wastegate duty, it went to 15 pounds. So air fuel. I'll just show you. I want to talk about it. Let me show you how good it is. Okay. Let's roll this window down. Zoom in. So I don't know if you can see that or not because it's such a light color, pink. But the boost came in, peaked at 45, and that's largely due to the low wastegate duty cycle. So didn't try aggressively to attain it early and let the pressure in the system do it. But then you see the air fuel at the bottom there. We just laid it right on at 11.0, 11.1, the whole pull. So that's good. I got the airflow right immediately. First flash nailed that. Boost actually doesn't look bad. And that's largely, in fact, in part, in fact, I didn't reduce the target. I just pulled the duty cycle out of it. But turns out it was enough duty cycle to get it around 4,500. Which is a good data point for me. I don't think these things are going to hold much more than 12 or so at redline anyways. So I've got the duty cycle pretty much nailed from 4,500 on. I just need to add a little more duty cycle, less than 4,500, to get the boost to come in a little sooner. So that looks good. Can't bitch about that. A base map. My initial map is freaking really close. I won't say base map. It's not really a base map. It's my starting point. But it's not like I've never tuned it before. So let's go here. Go to power. Look at the power curve. The torque curve looks super flat. Let's make this 250 so you can see it better. Got a little waviness to it. A little bit in there. Peaks around 55 instead of a fall by 67. Pretty flat, so it needs a little bit of work. Timing is super conservative right now. Like right here, it's got like 9 degrees, and then for 205, that's way low. And up here, we only got 15 at redline, which is too low anyway. So once I add some more time to this will smooth out. Provided none of this is because of weird engine issues or lash issues. This should smooth out as the combustion becomes cleaner by maybe 9 a little earlier, and it should carry a little better. I bet we could probably get 225, 230 with just one more adjustment in the timing. Again, that's hoping that it doesn't smoke a valve or something. If it's anything like that, like I suspect. Would I recommend a standalone on an EG205 WRX if passing an OBD inspection wasn't an issue? I love it. I love standalones. I don't like the factory ECU on these. It's really, it feels very inept and weak. I don't like it. I would absolutely run a standalone on a 205. I would prefer it to be a JDM 205 because the USDM 205 is boring as shit. But yeah, so I see here's timing right here. Like you see how conservative it is right now. So at 336, it's 9 degrees. At 4,000, it's 10 degrees. And then at red line, it's only 19 degrees at red line. But it goes from 19 to 16 pretty quick as it passes through 62. There's that one spot on these maps where they step up pretty steeply from the factory. So you can see that the timing is still really conservative. If this was a 207, that's what it would be like at 4,500 or something like that, but it's not, obviously. So I wanted to pull timing out of it, wanted to be safe. We know that 50% gets us our near our target boost up top, but I'm going to go for more and see what this engine will do with this turbo on it and see if it does a little bit. So I'm just going to take the whole thing and go up at this zone here. We're going to add it to like 65, and then I'm going to just taper in this next spot. This will give us a boost trend that we can see on the dyno, and then from there we can add taper to it as necessary with RPM when we determine how it behaves, but obviously I need data points to start with, so that's how it's going to be right there. I'm going to add a degree of timing to it. Obviously I pulled quite a bit. You can see here 2.5 plus the dynamic, and the dynamic is really low too. It was max right here, 8. So we got 8 dynamic there plus 2.5 here. So definitely conservative. And then the timing stops at 68, which is kind of annoying. I can change that right now if I want to do a hard flash on it, but there's no point doing it. This car's not going to rev out this above 68, but if it was a better revving engine, then obviously we'd want to bump this up as much as we can, because at the higher RPMs, especially over 6,000 RPM, your timing ramp has got to be pretty steep, or it just won't carry power. It'll start falling on its face. And you can see on the dyno graph even how it started to fall down a bit. So we're going to add right here this whole block from here. Gets us a little more timing there. I'm going to blend this spot right here just to keep from being too steppies. And then we're going to look here. I got 6, 6, 7, 7. All right, so this line and this line are really close to each other. So I'm actually going to raise right in here. Where is it? Right there. Raise that a little bit. Not a big step, medium step. Like that. I'm going to change the load to 2.6. That's actually the same. Wait, when you change this here to something like I'm doing here, 2.6, something bigger, you're raising the timing, because now that value is to the left here. So I'm going to add timing by changing this load, but also by changing the map. But I'm doing this because we're going to go past 2.14 easily on this. So I'm going to change that. 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3. No, we're going to 2, 4, 6. No, so we're going to 15, 5-ish. Now I'm going to do that. There it is. All right. So I raised the timing in 2 ways. One, the timing that was over here on this zone is now pushed over to here. So I added timing there. And that's like 3 or 4 degrees. I think it should do it, because typically 205s and the like want teens for timing around peak boost, and I've got that here. And this is still less than an EJ. I'm actually going to blend this a smidge right here. I like the step on that. This is still less timing than an EJ 255 would have. So I got a pretty aggressive ramp on it. If you look and you see the angle that this is, it's a pretty aggressive ramp on timing. It actually gets less aggressive a little bit here at the top, which might need to change. I might need to add a smidge more up here. Now, one thing I want to point out is that you saw that timing jumped up a bunch in the log, but you don't see it here and that's one thing that I want to adjust. That's actually in the compensations under per cylinder. For some reason, oh, they changed on the, here it is, -2, -2. Where's that? I want to show it to you. Where's that? There's max RPM, 62. So here's 62, less than 62, it's been pulling 2 degrees from cylinder 1 the entire time. And then over 62, this negative goes away, bloop, and it goes to time map. So cylinder 1, which is the one that's reporting all the timing to us, that's when we're seeing on that timing, is actually running 2 degrees less than the other cylinders. Cylinder 1 and cylinder 2 are running less than 3 and 4 by 2 whole degrees. I think this is excessive, but that's why Supers are doing it for a long time. But what we see now is that means that actually cylinders 3 and 4 have 2 more degrees than that log is showing us, all the way up to 62, and then they have the same as what the log is showing us, because this is so aggressive right here. So it's something to keep in mind if you're doing a 205, because they did it for cylinder 1. If they made this 0, which I think the right answer is make this 0. That's my opinion. Make this 0, and then for the same effect, make C and D +2. Now the timing that's reported, at least I know the time reported is cylinder 1, right? And then I know, oh, 4 is always 2 more. Instead of I mean, I guess it's technically the same thing, right? But this is reporting less. I don't know. It just, to me, it seems like I'd want 0 here so that I know what all the other cylinders are doing, what the programming is set at. So if I'm looking at the log, I go, wow, that's weird. I had this set at 15. How come I only got 13 out of it, right? Something's wrong with this, or I must have missed a temperature compensation or something like that. And it's not that. It's this, where at least if this is 0 and I program 16 in the time map with all the compensations, I'm going to get 16 in the log. It matches up. Like, okay, that's cool. And then I know that 4 is higher. In this case, it's just weird because now what's reported to me is going to be 2 less than what I've told it to run, and that throws people off sometimes. They don't realize that this thing here over this specified load is incorrect timing. At idle, it doesn't affect it because idle is less than 0.5. So I don't know. I think the right way is make the 0, make these positive, and then I know that the timing on my logs matches the timing on the maps, and then just know that 4 is more. Here, it's weird. It's just a different. I don't know. Like I said, that's their method, and I'm gonna change it right now. But I want both hands to do it. Man, it's cramping up. Hold this phone. Change cameras. So hurry up, please. There we go. Okay. So I'm gonna change this now. It'll be 0 since I gotta do a flash because I did the load change. By changing the x-axis on the maps, you have to do a flash. You can't do those real time like you can the time map. The intermap values you can do real time, but you can't change the axes in real time. So I have to do a flash, which means green connectors of death and all of that. Now I'm not doing a full 2 degrees. I don't like 2 degrees. I think 4 is too much, or 2 degrees is too much. I'm doing 1.4. It's a little less. But that is what I am doing here. So C and D are now 1.4 positive. A and B are now 0. Oh, Corona. We might take temp compensations. Change it a smidge. Make it pull time a little more aggressively with high intake temps because unfortunately Subaru doesn't adequately monitor heat soak because they don't measure the air temp post intercooler on anything EJ based. So it's always a good idea to pull timing with increased air temp charge because an increased air temp charge results in a faster burn speed. A faster burn speed means you need less timing. If you have too much timing and a faster burn speed, you increase chance of knock and detonation. Obviously, we don't want that. So I prefer to have an aggressive pull with intake air temp increase, a lot like the factory does in GM stuff. One thing you'll notice, though, if you ever tune a V8 that somebody else has tuned, like a Chevy and LS, the first thing that people always do is reduce how much timing is pulled based on intake air temp. I don't understand that. I don't understand why they do that. It's removing protection doesn't seem like a good idea. I'd rather you add more timing to the base map, honestly. Like, oh, it's pulling 2 for this, I'll add time to the base map. At least do that so that as air temp goes up, it can still pull timing to protect the engine. But they'll get rid of it, or they'll add a bunch of timing to it so that it doesn't even have an effect until like 160 degrees. Like, that's not right. But a lot of guys do it, and I don't understand. I don't understand. It's too conservative, you know, and that's why you're spinning bearings in your car. That's, you know, yeah, I don't agree with the way a lot of V8 tuners tune their stuff, especially when it comes to idle control. That just blows me away what they do there. It's insane. Okay, so I'm going to double check those targets. Yep, okay, and then waste reduce cycle goes up. Yep, okay. I'm going to flash this, which means I'm going to disconnect. I love Cobb, but when they change this, it's stupid. I have to disconnect just to reconnect again to flash. Stupid. What's even dumber is that in order to do it, all I gotta do is hit Control L. So really, like, I shouldn't be bitching about it, but it's stupid. Like, you could just have that macroed into the flash function. Oh, he wants a flash. Disconnect from ECU. Enable flash. I don't understand why that's something that they added in. It used to be that way. You would just hit flash, it would stop logging, it would do the flash. Work great. But for some reason now they make you stop logging and then initiate the flash. Check my messages while this. Oh man, I forget how fast these things flash. I mean, there's no data. There's so little data to flash on these things. The chip is what? 134 kilobytes, I think is what it is. Like 128 or 134 kilobyte chip. It's not very big. And so it flashes really quick. Whereas the GR chip is a megabyte. Actually, it's not true. All the drive-by-wire cars except 04 are a megabyte. The opposition that I'm aware of. And then 04 is 756, I think it was, something like that. Do you want to replace? Yes, I do. So the drive-by-wire cars, you're typically writing a little more data. The maps are larger, there's more things, but you're not writing the whole chip every time you flash, which is why if you make a ton of changes, it can take longer, and if you make a couple changes, then it's just whoop, really quick. You may have noticed, I'm looking a little skinnier. Lost a few pounds, been working out a little bit, trying to get back in shape, trying some new techniques because old techniques weren't working. And the difference has been pretty dramatic. So maybe one day I'll do a video where I share my workout secrets. Yeah, see, it's misfiring now. You feel it. It's a little misfire now. I think they did. I think they fucked the lash up. I think they got it too tight. It's swimming. It feels like it's swimming. It's going. It's this swishy feeling. It isn't just a harsh vibration. It feels like the engine is going like this. Buff tuning stream. Dom's secret bod mod. I wish I could show you, man. My fucking biceps are like ripped. And that's only with like fucking maybe 3 weeks working out now. So, I think it's lash. I think it's too tight.
Is it running like crap?
Not like crap, but as temperature went up.
So kind of having a weird rough nerve roughness.
Yeah, starting to jiggle.
Cool.
Yeah.
First was too loose, now it's too tight.
Well, they should have had us do the work. They should have had us do the work the whole time. Not whoever else did it.
He had a shop in Idaho do it. I don't know, or do the lash and the head work.
Did they do it with it on the block or off the block? Yeah, that's the problem. We don't know. Yeah. PSA: if you're doing a valve lash, the head has to be bolted down to the block. You can get it close off the block, but it's got to be on the block. It changes 3 thou or more when you bolt it down, and usually in the tighter direction. Yep. All right, well, I'm gonna do another poll, see if my changes did good.
And then tell him that he needs to fix that.
Hopefully, I don't burn a valve. Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
All right. It might be Rona. So I have the dam still set to be at 12 when the first starts. There he goes. I went quite a bit. Boost. Didn't really go up at all. Went up a tiny bit. And it's still a little choppy. What's interesting though is that it's chopping the exact same points. That's weird. I did have a 5 knock learn occur at 5200 this time. The timing is quite a bit higher. I might have added a little too much. Yeah, it's a little too much. So I'll pull a smidge timing out of it. Through most of the pole. So the load change definitely played a part in that. So let me go to my logs, open them up in my logging software. I've already put the key in. That's weird. This one? It's not that one. Huh. All right, I'll have to try and get my key back, but I don't have this email password on here. I forget what it is. What's going on here? So my calculated load got to, where did it get to? .2 at the middle of the pole. I locked and start until the middle of the pole though, so I gotta redo that. So now I have a little time, I pull a little timing out of it. Especially on the 5,000 mark, but there is a little extra ramp there. So I feel like that's the right place to pull it. Like that. There we go. think that'll help. A Nightfire 37. This is just a bug-eye. Just an O2 WRX with a JDM bug-eye motor, non-AVCS. I'm starting to think, judging by the things that I've been hearing, that it might even be the USDM heads just with the JDM bottom end, which means it's basically a bug-eye. But I'm not totally sure, honestly. So we haven't been involved in the build at all, unfortunately, or the motor swap. So I wish that wish we had been. Yeah, it would be my favorite if it had AVCS, Cody. Definitely would be. I like the JDM motors, the 205s with AVCS and all of that. I like them. I just don't like the 20X bullshit motor that everyone's buying because they can't afford to put a real engine in their car. Put that 20X in there. I mean, and to be fair, the 20X has got some potential, but it isn't what people think it is. And there's just some people that put it in there because they're too cheap. They can't afford to replace the engine in the car correctly, and then the installation is almost always done wrong. All kinds of stuff isn't fitting. It's super common, and so, god damn it, super common that it's done really poorly, and so I try to avoid them. So if anyone says they put a 20X in their fucking 08 plus WRX or whatever, then I'm just like, no thanks, I don't want to deal with it. Because chances, 9 times out of 10, it ain't done right. I told one guy that, he flipped his shit, cussed at me, called me all kinds of names in the email, threatened me to fight me, all kinds of stuff. And then takes it to the shop. And that shop calls me and is like, oh my god, this car's so fucked up. I'm like, yeah, probably. Yeah, they called me up like, oh, this car's so bad. All this stuff is so messed up on it. It's done so. And the guy was like, how dare you say I don't know how to install my stuff? Fuck you. And I'm a fucking mechanic and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, if I had $1 for every time some idiot told me they were a mechanic, I'd have many dollars. I'm a mechanic. Okay. Oh, shut up. And same for engineer. I'm an engineer. Shut the fuck up. You're not an engineer. But people want to take claim to shit that they don't have. So, yeah. The guy threatened to fight me and shit, too, which happens a lot. I get that a lot. Because they assume tuner means some fucking nerdy guy that's behind a computer. They don't think it's 225 pounds of guy who has a history of fighting. So, fuck those people. Alright, so it's a little wiggle wobble to it. I don't like it. I don't like the way the power curve has the kick at the same place every time. I don't like it. Here's your free $1. Yeah. Let's see. All right. This log went for the entirety this time. That's good. Okay, this one actually recorded for the entirety, so that's good news. Let's look at this log. I'm going to show you in a second. Where's the throttle at? Here-ish. Okay. Let's look at this log. I should just like flash on a picture of a turd or something on the screen. That'd be hilarious, wouldn't it? Let's look at this log. Fucking big old piece of shit sitting there. I should have Google searched log. Would have been funnier. All right, feedback, not correction, calculated. So that's calculated load. You see the load definitely looks a lot like the boost curve, which would make sense. Here's the boost curve, comes up. Or here's the boost curve now. Yeah, man, that was almost the same freaking graph, wasn't it? Boost curve is now on top. me turn it off. Hey, that's the load. Now load's on top. Now boost curve. Now load. Boost curve. Now load. Look how close they are, right? Makes sense. Because the load is how much mass is in the cylinder. How much mass goes in the cylinder depends on the boost. So, there we go. Timing. Okay, timing comes down with an increase in load. It's pretty flat. Looks pretty good. This spot here, who's that guy? What's that say? 16.5 down to 15.5. What RPM are we at? This is at, let's make this RPM. 44, 45. Where's my wiggle at? My wiggle's at 44, 45. Be weird if 1 degree of timing made that big of a difference. But it could. I suppose. If it's only 1 degree, you wouldn't think it'd make that big of a difference. You can even be a crappy mechanic. All kinds of people are just bad at their jobs. Yeah, that's true. The guy could be a crappy mechanic because people are bad at their jobs. That's true. Eric N, 225 equals 102 kilograms. Not a small guy by any stretch. I don't think I'm a very big guy, but I had one guy talking all kinds of trash to the internet, and I jokingly mentioned my weight, and then all of a sudden the dude stopped responding. So I guess he felt the same way. Let's see. You know what's funny is, as I said, I started working out again, and I'm one of the lucky guys that their bodies put on muscle mass super quick, like just insanely fast. I don't know why. I know they call them mesomorphs and ectomorphs or whatever they are. Anyway, so my sister and I, like, we put on muscle really, really fast, and that's cool. If that's your thing, right? We're built to be sprinters, right? There's people that are built for sprinting, people that are built for endurance, based on the kind of fast twitch, slow twitch muscle you have, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm built like a sprinter. I'm bursting energy out really quickly, that kind of thing. And I feel like the BMI calculators online that told me I'm supposed to be like 165 pounds, I think they're built around ectomorphs, I think is what it is, the really skinny guys or something. Because, like, dude, if I was 165 pounds, I would, no, like, that just isn't right. I would look I would look weird, really, really weird. My body type, my bone structure, and my muscle mass is way too high to be 165 pounds. So I don't understand those calculators. I feel like they're just full of shit. Now I gotta flash this map. I put this phone down real quick. I gotta do the gray connectors here. Nah, that locked me in the car. Okay. Green connectors, not gray connectors. Come on. It's buried under the dash. Hate it. All right, I guess I'm ready to flash. It's really interesting. Our bodies, they're very interesting. The difference in our bodies based on genetics is really interesting. Now, you're not allowed to say that people are different. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to say that some genetic backgrounds are historically better at X or Y because of muscles placed in different areas and stuff. But a difference that I've noticed with me and other people is where I put fat, right? People put fat in different spots. My family on one side of my family is a little big, and everyone, not everyone, but almost everyone on one side of my family is overweight, and the other side is not. On the other side of the family, like, almost nobody's overweight, and it's not just lifestyle; it's just the way they're built. I mean, it is also a bit of lifestyle, but it's not all lifestyle. It's genetics, because people are fucking different. Now, what's interesting about me is where I put fat. Like, my fat, it's actually bad in a lot of ways. Actually, my fat goes to my organs. It like wraps around my organs and stuff. And so when I put on too much fat, that's where it goes. And then after it fills up my organs and everything, or the area between them, then it goes to my gut and my legs, like most people see. But because of that, because of where the fat goes, while I don't show as much of it right away, it affects my organs and things. And so I have to be more conscious of that stuff than some people do. Some people just go straight to their spare tire, right? Fat right there. And inside, they're in tip-top condition, or not tip-top, but they're in really good shape. Yeah, that visceral fat, that's what it is. Thank you. And so, yeah, and unfortunately with me, it goes to the visceral, sinewy stuff around your organs and stuff before it comes onto the outside. So for appearance-wise, that's great, because you can still see my ab muscles, even though I have a really high body fat percentage. I still look like I have all the muscles in my stomach for that, but it's because the fat's behind it first, and then it gets put to the front. So I have to work on getting that down. Like most of us Americans, I just have way too much of it. But yeah, it's very weird. People are very different. Absolutely. That's absolutely true. Aaron says it is lifestyle, and that different genetics determine things like metabolism. Two people the same height could have drastically different metabolisms and need different calorie intakes. Absolutely. And even one person throughout their own life will have a variable metabolism that changes as they get older. Trust me. And and some people's, as they grow older, won't change as much. For me, when I was younger, like in high school, right? Like most of us, I could eat anything. But there were fat people in high school, right? And there were girls that I remember in high school that were a little on the chubby side. And people would think, oh, she's chubby. And then they grew up and they became smoking hot, trim, and sexy AF without doing anything different other than just growing up. Where me, on the other hand, as I got older, I got thicker. I can't eat anything anymore, right? I can't just eat whatever the hell it was. But then I have other friends who have been skinny their entire life and can eat whatever they want their entire life, and they're not even that active. So it's definitely different genetics for sure. But you're not allowed to say that, which I think is so absurd. So absurd. All right, let's see. It's all part of the clown world we live in. All right, I don't want to do too many propulsion in this car because I don't want to risk it. Because, like I said, I do think it's got a tight valve lash. But I do want the tune to be solid for the guy, as solid as I can get it. So I don't want to do much pulls. I don't want to get a lot of heat in it. Luckily, my AFRs were nice and rich the first time that I went, and I didn't have to change fuel, and it wasn't too lean ever. So that's really good, and that'll help keep the HTs down and help minimize the chance of curb stuff. But if the valve is held open and it's on the exhaust side, it's going to burn. This intake side is going to lose some power. So if it is holding an intake valve open, then it could be losing some power due to that. If it's holding the exhaust valve, and then typically that just burns almost instantly. So I don't think it's going to be an intake valve. I think they probably get an exhaust valve. They probably have an intake valve too tight, and as everything warms up, it starts to just not close as well as it could. So that's just the theory, obviously, without being inside this motor and knowing. There we go. All right, so I pulled a bunch of timing in the mid-range around the area where that waviness was on the dyno, and I was hoping that pulling that timing would help it clean up. It didn't. Now, interestingly enough, also the dynamic advance multiplier dropped like a fucking rock that round, but there was never any indication of knock. But also, I started the pull pretty close to the flash, and I didn't give it any chance to learn. I don't even know if the O2 sensor was active, to be honest with you. Yeah, it was. So I'm not sure why that one pulled so much timing, or why the dam dropped so quick with no response anywhere else. I mean, the timing's not aggressive. 11 and a half at 3. It dropped right here at 37. So at 3,700 RPM, I'm at 12 and a half degrees of timing, which on a EJ205 is nothing. And at that RPM, I'm at 11 AFRs, and the boost is barely 16 pounds. So why? Why the dam drop right there? I don't know the answer to that, because it shouldn't have dropped there. There's not really a good reason for the drop there. The compression ratio is a little higher, but it's not that much higher on this engine. It shouldn't have been a problem. It went back up to 16 by red line, so even during the pull, they got to 16. And what's interesting about that, though, is that you can see this on the dyno graph. I was going to show you that in a second. This drop in timing pulled 4 degrees out of it, because the dynamic advance map was 8.09, and so if it's 16, then I get 8 degrees. If it's 8, I get 4 degrees. So this is 4 degrees less than it should have been. With that in mind, 4 more would be almost too much. So 4 would have been almost too much. And then to think that cylinder 4 has got even more on than that is too much. I got to lower the timing overall. But so maybe because the timing was too high, that's why. But at the same time, this is not too high. But remember, this is cylinder 1. Cylinder 4 is 1.4 degrees higher than that, because I talked about how I changed that. So, yeah, I'll pull some back out of it. On the top end, though, it was clearly okay. It enjoyed it. It added the multiplier back into it again, and the amount of time that I pulled was just not enough. It was not enough. Okay, add a little more taper to that with load. And then I'm going to do a bulk change right there. Let's save that. Okay, I got some questions coming up in the chat. Let me answer these real quick. How are you able... Oh, is that what's called a dad bod? I think the dad bod has less ab muscles, just more tube. Just, you know... how are you able to tell that the valve lash is too tight? Well, I don't know, right? That's what I say. I haven't been in the motor, but I suspect it's too tight for 2 reasons. One, it's really quiet. Now, quiet motors hear it, you know, making a bunch of noise, but a quiet motor is not a happy motor, because a quiet motor means that there's no space between the cam and the bucket. So I don't hear any noise. And an EJ typically is a little noisy. I hear none at all. When it was first here, before, it was way too much lash. It was loud. It sounded almost like a spun bearing. It was so loud. I told the guy, dude, your valve lash is way off. So he took it to someone to have it done, and it still is. I think it's too tight now. So first off is I hear no valve trying whatsoever. I think it's too tight. Second is because when it was cold, it ran really smooth. When it got hot, it started to develop a misfire. Now, what in the engine is temperature dependent for misfires? It's just compression. The valves get longer as they get hotter, and the valve lash goes down, and it holds the valve open. So I believe that the valve lash is too high, and that's what's making it have a little bit of misfires. Not unimportant to look at the food these days. The way they're modified, and how they're grown lacks potency. Yes, it does. People end up with cravings even when they eat healthy, and the body stays in a sort of reserve state, similar to malnutrition. That will make it also difficult to be able to eat certain things. And find a vegan and make healthy food edible. Yeah, so Well, absolutely. And not just that, but also in preparation, right? When you microwave food, you can damage a lot of the nutrients in the food by microwaving it. Um, the science behind it is just that it takes the water molecules and shakes them around a bunch, and it energizes them and gets them hot. But some testing has shown that it damages the molecules in all sorts of ways. So different proteins break down and that kind of stuff. I mean, proteins break down when you cook anyways, right? That's just what happens. That's why actually you and I talked about how I was allergic to a bunch of stuff when we had dinner the other day, right? Mentioned how if I eat apples, bananas, cantaloupe, honeydew, watermelon, some strawberries, some oranges, those carrots and cucumbers, part of my body goes into a reactive state or anaphylactic state. My throat closes up, my gums swell up really big, my lips really, really big, my esophagus goes into spasms. I get to where I can't breathe, and I'm in pain for like 3 days. If I manage to make it with the breathing thing, okay, then I'm still in pain for 3 days. But I take that same fruit or vegetable, and I can cook it, and if I break down the proteins in it, then when I eat it, I have no reaction. So anytime you cook food, you alter, some of the proteins and nutrients and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a thing to think about, what you put in your body. And it's hard to get all the nutrients you want. And that's one reason that I love our garden that Teresa and I made. We grew a lot of food this year, and through most of the summer and fall, most of our meals were with food that we had grown and then cooked in ways to minimize how much we broke down. Try to minimize use of the microwave, for example, and things like that. Don't overcook foods, because when you add char to something, you've really fucked it up. And there's actually been a lot of studies on that. I don't know if you've ever thought about looked into that. Char, the black char that you get, apparently that's just loaded with cancer-causing stuff. Like it causes cancer really rapidly. So the more burnt food you eat, the faster you get cancer. It's interesting to think about it, because it's really just like hard carbon and shit at that point. And is that something you should be eating? I don't know. So I was reading a bunch of articles about that shit. I like to read stuff. I like to learn about things, read studies, see if it's just data that's, made up. Like, oh, well, when this happened, there we go. This means that. And there's, reactions or interfaces that they've missed, but then also look at how these studies are done, because I like to see how things work. I'm always been about how do systems interface with each other and all of that. So that being the system in our body, the systems in a car, the systems in aerial separators, right? Cyclonic separators, that kind of stuff. It's always interesting to me. So I'm always trying to find articles that you should pay for. Those are usually the best ones. If you got to pay for it, choose the best one. So, yeah, my wife likes her toast almost burnt. Not black, but she likes it really dark brown. And I don't. I like a medium, like nice medium toast on my toast, but she likes it really dark. Luckily, she doesn't like meat black. Otherwise, we would never have been together. That wouldn't work out. But she likes her bacon really crispy, likes her hash browns extra crispy. She likes those things like right on the verge of being burnt. But on her steak, she likes her steak medium rare to medium. But not me. I like my bacon to be a little on the soft, where it's like just starting to get crispy, but I still have some squish to it. I like my steaks medium rare. I like my salmon raw. Things like that. Unfortunately, I have an egg sensitivity. That sucks. Part of my whole allergy thing. Egg yolks, if they're not cooked, fuck me up. And I love it so much. I love eggs that just over easy a little bit, or get my hash browns and fucking eggs and mix them all in there. Let get the yolk to break up, mix it in there, and get the whole. Yeah, I love that. But man, egg yolks fuck me up. Sometimes I itch. I get stomach cramps. I gotta poop. Not the good kinds. So yeah, it's one of those things. Running eggs are great, but yeah, explosive results over here. Yeah, so you two have the yeah. So what's funny about that is if you have that sensitivity, you're more prone to having reactions to the flu shot. I had 1 year where I reacted very poorly to the flu shot, and it turns out it's because I had egg sensitivity. And there's other things too. Certain anesthesias, when you do anesthesias for surgeries and stuff, there's certain anesthesias they don't like to give you if you have an egg sensitivity. So I have to go with a different kind of anesthesia, which makes you feel groggy longer, unfortunately. And whereas they can, in surgery where they can do like short acting ones that leave your system really quick and you're like, whoop, I'm fine afterwards. I can't have those because of my egg sensitivity. So I have to have, what's the really bad one everyone's always like dying from? That one. That's the one I have to have because that one doesn't have the egg base in it and stuff. So, okay, so I'm done with this. I'm not going to do any more pulls on it because I just don't like how it feels. But I got the timing reduced. I got it a lot safer than it was. Still made 220. But I definitely think this guy we need to address this engine a little more. It's just not right. It's just not right. The boost is really good. Everything else is really good. Let's see if I forgot to flash the final thing. Fuck. I'm gonna do one more. I'm gonna flash this last revision and then do one last pull. Cross the fingers, and do this one last just to make sure that everything's right. I don't want to keep beating on this car, but at the same time, I want him to be happy with this car. So I changed the load scale back a little bit on that last one, which is why I have to flash it for it to take effect. That's why I said I should have flash it. Because that load scale, like I said, the x-axis is a reflash based map, table, part, aspect, whatever you want to call it. So I have to do that anyways. And by doing that, it lowered the timing some more because I pushed that timing cell to the right on the map by changing the x-axis. One thing I started doing back in 2006 was it was a protective. It's definitely on. One second. I'll tell you in a second. This is good. It's something you should try if you tune yourself. Something I recommend doing. Obviously, I've been doing it since 2006, so I would think that I'd recommend it. If you're in a situation where you have a car that is using a wide range of loads because it makes a lot of horsepower, and that's, you know, all right, there goes. So, you know, if I got a car that's using 4 grams per revolution for load, that's a lot more than a stock car that's using 2.1. That's almost twice the power output. So if I'm using more of the timing map at that point, one thing I want to do is provide some protection that doesn't come from the factory. So what I realized some time ago dynamic advanced maps don't have to have the same axes. The value from that table is interpolated between cells anyways, based on the load. It doesn't have to have the same axes. A lot of people do it. A lot of people, when they found out what I was doing, flipped out because they're like, isn't it the same axes? What the fuck? Doesn't fucking matter. The ECU doesn't take this square and then top of this square. It takes the value from this calculation and adds it to the value from this calculation. So I have the ability to put the dynamic advanced map on a different x-axis than I have the timing map. Now, obviously, I got to keep in mind what's happening when I'm adjusting those tables, because I know that the right column is not matching the right column. The right column now is slightly different. But by doing that, what I can do is run what I call overload or boost protection more than just a boost cut. Right? As boost goes up in the inch, what I want to happen. When boost goes up, I want timing to go down. That's just kind of a given. Boost is going to go up, load's going to go up, time is going to go down. I want that to happen. If I do my timing map and try and maintain as much resolution as I can have with it, I'm going to make my time map stop where my peak load is, like where I'm going to go in normal operation. The problem is that sometimes when things are really cold, the guy's got a car full of people in the back seat, right? They're going up a hill in the winter. Then you might get more load. You might get more boost. You might get, a colder day, the air is more dense. You get more air past the mass airflow sensor because the air is dense, so it's more pushing through, so it sees more mass. The turbo, every time that blade comes around, is scooping a more dense air charge instead of a low density air. Then I have more load in the car. I'm going up a hill, whatever. I could blow through that load zone. And if I do, I'm not reducing my timing to protect it. If I get more boost and I activate another boost cut, well, that's great. That's one thing. I have boost cut, protect the engine from more boost. That's good. They take time to activate though. And I can hit a higher load cell at the same boost if I'm in a more dense environment. So my load, because it's mass of airflow, it's not boost, right? It's mass airflow in a mass airflow car, can go past my column on the far right in certain conditions. So I really wanted to provide an instantaneous protection against that. Something that allows the ECU to react to higher than expected load cells, while at the same time not losing resolution of my primary timing map. So what I did was use my dynamic advanced map. And the way I did that, I will show you this as I bring it up here. I didn't do it on this car because I'm not using hardly any of what I want to say. I'm not making hardly any horsepower. The turbo is so small, it's not going to be able to make a bunch more boost on it. The car's making such low horsepower, it's not going to need a huge reduction in time and that kind of stuff. But when you get a car that's making a lot of power, has a really big turbo, that has the capability of putting a lot more load into the engine, it's really a protection I like to enable. So what I do in that situation is this. I'll take the second to last column on the dynamic advanced map, and I will set that equal to the rightmost column of my primary advanced map. So in this case, my primary advance is 2.25 on the far right. I told you I reduced it earlier. So in the dynamic map, I would make the second to last column 2.25. I'll show you in a second. So I take this one here, make this one 2.25. And then I make the one next to it some value higher. Usually I do like 0.2 to 0.3 higher than this one, okay? So now what happens is, we'll say I go to 2.25, I'm at 8, plus whatever I am on the primary map, which, if we look here, I could be like, we'll say 1.8, all right? Now, if I hit 2.4 load, this goes to 2.4, what do I get? I get the same value. I get 2.5 plus the 8. If I get 3.0 load, well, it's over here, but it's still the same value. It's not interpreted on some linear line or whatever. It's just this value. And so I wanted to provide protection for that. I want it to pull timing. So what I did now is I went to the dynamic advanced map, and to the right column I added some to it, and then I take it and I cut this value down. We'll say 4 for the sake of this. So now what happens is this value is interpolated between those two load cells. So if I hit 2.4 load, my primary map is still the same. It's still going to be the 2.5 or whatever it was on the primary map. But now, as I get 2.4, oh, look, I'm pulling, 3 degrees from it at 2.4-ish, right? I'll pull about 3 degrees from it. So now, when my load goes past the right end of my primary ignition table, my dynamic advanced map has a safety built into it to reduce timing. Now, this value is a little low. And I don't mean low as in it's too low from here. What I mean is some of these ECUs don't drop the ignition advanced multiplier or the DAM, based on which year the car is, what you want to call it, if this value is less than 4.97 or something. It has to be higher than 4.97 for it to drop the DAM. So, with that in mind, you kind of want this one to stay higher than that threshold. So 5 would be a good spot here. Now, if my dynamic advanced map, we'll say, was 6, right, or already 5, like some cars, they're already 5, and then I had done it to 1, well, that wouldn't be good, because then I would never have a DAM action to protect the engine. So I got to take the whole dynamic advanced map and add to it, which is fine, because a lot of these, for the factor, are fucking 12, right? So I can make this 12 to pull 4 degrees out of the main map, make this higher than 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever I need to make it based on this load cell. Then I still have an active DAM in this area, so that if I go through and I blow through and it starts to knock a bunch, even with my timing retard that I added to it, then it can still protect the engine with a dynamic advanced multiplier, pull through there. And then I have enough here that I have active timing corrections with a change in DAM in normal operation as well. So I don't like having this here at a low value, my dynamic advanced map. I don't like having it at a low value. I like to keep it high. 8, like this tune was, is about the lowest I run on most of my tunes. I usually run them even higher than that. For 2 reasons. One, if the DAM drops, I want to pull timing. If the DAM's sensing a problem, I want to pull timing. And the fast way to pull timing with the DAM drop, or globally, is with the DAM drop. And I want to do that. And then that gives me the ability to set this fail-safe wherever I want. High or low or big change, 5 degrees, 2 degrees, whatever I need to be. This protection gives me the ability, it gives me flexibility to have this protection be active or effective. So that's something I've been doing for, was that 15 years now or something? 16 years? But it's one of the protections that I add to a Subaru that, I don't know how many people have ever done that before, but I'm sure some people do it. But that's something I've been doing since 2006, just to help give a little extra safety margin on the cars. I'll never forget it too. Back during the open source days when I used to do open source tuning, when I was doing an e-tune with somebody, and it was open source so they could see it, and then they fucking put it into some Excel spreadsheet they had, and the Excel spreadsheet didn't compensate for the differences in the axes. So then it showed the total timing is the big old fucking screwed up curves. And the dude was like, "This guy knows what he's doing." He started bagging me like crazy and shit. And then I'm like, "Hey, dude, your upper axes are wrong." And then he's like, "But why'd you make them different? And you know what the fuck you're doing? They should be the same." And I'm like, "No, they don't have to be the same. This is the reason why." And then all of a sudden, next thing I know, I started seeing more people do it that way. But it's simple, and it's just a simple protection that you can add without losing resolution of your primary map just by doing that. I run them around 8, and then I think of the Rocky meme and that it's a Subaru, and if it fails, it fails. You mean when it fails, it fails. My load can also go past my collar in most cases, not mine. Barely clear my knuckles. Oops, cancel. All right. Want to save it? No, I don't. I don't want to save it. I just want to show that as a demo. All right, so I pulled a bunch of timing out of it. I'm going to do another pull. Did I do the pull? No, I think I'm going to do it now. My phone's about to die. I only got a few percent left, so I don't have much more time. That's funny. I just got sent a meme. Let's see if I can shift this thing smooth on the Dyno. All right, let's see what we got. How angry is it? Then it went up, then went back down again, then went back up again. So there's a little wiggle in the dam, which is crazy because I still think the timing's pretty conservative. I pulled a bunch out of it. Execute duty went to 90. Oh yeah, because we're at 2,000. Then it came back down. Control boost just fine. See you, Matt. Have a good day, dude. You're correct, Jason, on all accounts. All right, so I pulled a lot of timing out of it. I lost some power in the mid-range, that's expected, but I'm surprised at how much I lost, for how much I pulled, and then the fact that the dam still wanted to wiggle around. Yeah, I'm just gonna call it. This thing needs some more work, and I don't want to keep abusing it if it's something that's gonna take a shit on us. I don't want it to happen to me on the dyno. I feel bad for the guy. He's had not great luck with the other shop, and I don't want to make him feel like he's not having great luck at this shop. So. Dropping shit. So I started jokingly screaming about shit. You know, like you get scared, you joke like, "Wah!" Whatever, and just to be funny with my friends and shit. And then what happened was, it became a habit. And then one time I actually got scared and I screamed and I was like, God damn it. So be careful what you joke around about. You can develop a habit. I had a raccoon run into my house while I opened the door, just fucking opened it up to make sure that the lights were turned off at the hot tub at my old house. And it was pitch black out there, and this fucking raccoon just came barreling past my legs. And I jumped back and went, ah! and screamed like that. Realizing that I was actually fucking scared, and I screamed like a fucking girl with the way I had jokingly done it so many times before. And I was like, God damn it. Turns out that wasn't a raccoon, it was my cat. Which made it even funnier. All right. Well, unless anybody has any other questions, I just say stay tuned. Oh, here's a question. When using the radium double pumper setup, is it possible to keep the pump duty cycle function but keep the ground circuit for the primary pump? I've heard yes and no to this question. No.
I mean, no. And there's no point to doing that. That doesn't save the controller any. It still has the same load flowing through it, and it'll still burn it right up. So no, there's no point in doing that whatsoever. I think it's a huge misconception in how the system works that people do it. If you want to maintain fuel pump control, get a bigger controller or get another one. If running, say, like 2 AM340s, get another controller and wire it in parallel and then have it control the other pump. You can absolutely do that. You just tee off the digital wire that tells it what duty cycle to run a fresh battery lead to both of them anyways, just so you get, you know, good battery power, get a good ground, run fresh wires to the other pump. And then you have 2 controllers, one from each pump, and they both run the same duty cycle. You can turn them down to 20% at idle if you want, then set it at 45 to 50 or whatever in a medium acceleration, and then 100% when you're higher, above a certain duty cycle. But yeah, just run 2 controllers. If you're running 525s, the 525s are too much for one controller. Get a bigger controller. Get the GTR controller. The GTR controller you can get for like $160 or so online, used to have a wrecked car, and put that in there, and it'll power a 525 no problem. Some guys run 2 525s off them. I don't like to do that personally. I like to just run 2 GTR controllers. Factory ECU has no problem putting out a digital signal to the control wires for the controllers. Nothing, no problem, no issues. 2 controllers, boom, and you're good to go. You don't need to do any fuckery trying to figure out how to get one to run only half a leg or some shit and have it not work. Just run it like it's made to be run. Just run it in parallel. That's what I do all the time. All the time. And it's a wonderful solution. It's definitely the best way to do it, in my opinion, obviously. So 2 controllers or a GTR controller, just fucking plug it in. Good to go. If you run in, like I said, I run the GTR controller in my car. I have a single 525 in mine. I got the GTR controller in it. It's nice to be able to control the duty cycle of the pump to maintain fuel pressure consistent, minimize excessive heating of the fuel, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, no problem, dude. Yeah, you're late. I'm saying goodbye right now. Oh, just a word. The stupid chat doesn't come up. So as soon as this video is over and it goes into replay status where you can replay the stream, the chat's not active. It takes like 2 days for some reason for YouTube to comb through it or to apply it in real time to the video or something like that. I don't know. 450s and one in the tank. Well, if you have one in the tank, then that means you have a surge tank. And if you have a surge tank, then this phone's about to die. So I'm assuming 2 in a surge tank and 1 in the tank, or 3 in a surge tank and 1 in the tank. Regardless, if they're 450s, you could probably run 2 450s off of one controller and then just run one off the other. That being said, yeah, I mean, the one that's in the tank is just going to run through the surge tank back into the fuel tank, right? And that one is going to not have to pressurize much. You're going to get like maybe 20 pounds in the surge tank or whatever, and that's great because that makes the venturi work to pull fuel from the other side. You don't need to have a whole lot of current on that because pumping at low pressure doesn't take a whole lot of energy. But you do, and you want to minimize heating. So if you have the ability to maintain duty cycle control over that pump, you should, to minimize fuel heating. But that doesn't affect the regulator overrun at all, right? Unless your venturi pump in the tank is getting overrun, causing back pressure in that return line to go up. And when back pressure in the return line goes up, then the surge tank Now it gets too high of a pressure, and the primary regulator can't control fuel pressure well enough because it can't vent enough fuel down into a high pressure thing. So then you have fuel pressure control issues and that kind of stuff. So one, I'm trying to say. So ideally, you want to minimize fuel heating as much as possible. And to do that, you just got to be creative with how you want to control it. But I mean, you have all kinds of options. You can run 3 controllers, you can run 2 controllers, you can do, whatever you want in whatever configuration, as long as it's sound, as long as it works, right? If you want to design an actual individual setup with me, then we can do that. Shoot me an email, and I can draw you up some shit that you could wire, or work on some principles and explain what I recommend for that situation or whatever, and we can do that through email or whatever. So. Or Discord, if you want to do it in my Discord channel, come by the Discord, say hi to the guys, learn how cheap some people are. I had a couple guys in there they're the penny pinchers, and I give them a hard time because I was like, "No, do this because it's cheaper." And I'm like, "Oh my god, you guys are killing me." So there's some fun times we had in there, and then if it's something like that where I can work with you in either the educational section or with the other guys, engine building section or whatever, then other guys can learn from it as well. And I would prefer to be able to do that so that people can also learn from your situation and what we go through and talk about. So I think that's it. So I'm going to go before the phone dies. I think it's at like 2% now. And you guys have a good night. Hope you learned something. And if not, hope that you didn't find my voice too annoying. So thank you. And have a good night. Hit stop, but